How old were you when you learned about basic health and wellness for your body? Who taught you the tools to advocate for yourself in a medical setting? Maybe it was a caregiver, your teacher, your sibling, or maybe it was nobody. Welcome to Wondercast, a community collaborative podcast supporting families navigating the complexities of chronic illness or injury. Wondercast is supported by the generous sponsorship of Texas Oncology. Texas Oncology, more breakthroughs, more victories, experts in cancer care. Women and girls now have the opportunities to feel empowered in their care through the incredible work of organizations like the Women's Fund in Houston, Texas. Tune in and hear all the incredible ways this organization is creating safe spaces for growing communication, resiliency, and strength and advocacy. Meet Kaila.
Hi, I'm Kaila Vargas. I am the program manager for the Women's Fund for Health Education and Resiliency. I've been with the organization for a little over 6 years now, started as a volunteer back in 2016 and fell in love with the mission and the work. And after I got my degree in 2019, I officially started as a program coordinator. Outside of work, I've been married for almost 3 years now. And in my free time, I enjoy going to the gym, reading books, and trying new recipes.
Yes. Oh, man. And we're finally getting to do fall recipes. I'm so excited.
I'm excited.
Bring on the soups. I'm ready for it. I would love it if you could share a little bit about how that work your team does impacts women and girls in the greater Houston area, but just kind of also just in general, like not even isolated to one area.
Yeah, I think the Women's Fund itself and how it got started is a really interesting story. We've been around since 1979, but a lot of people are not aware that we even exist. In the early days, we came about when a small group of women kind of got together and were talking about the lack of funding around women's health research specifically. And so they banded together to create the Women's Fund to provide funding for different research projects around women's health. And then eventually, in the early 2000s, they kind of realized that the gifts that they were giving weren't as impactful as some of the larger organizations were now giving to support women's research. Don't get me wrong, they funded like $1.4 million in research projects in about 20 years, but they then decided to shift to a public health model. And so since the early 2000s, we have been implementing programs and publications around health and resilience topics for women and girls in the greater Houston area. I think what makes our programming so unique is the fact that we highlight resilience. But in addition to that, we provide a safe space for participants to have candid conversations about health and ask questions that they may not feel asking in other spaces. A lot of the times, the girls that we're working with, they don't have a trusted adult that they can go to get accurate health information. And so they're relying on social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Snapchat to get their health information. And as adults, for a lot of us, we can decipher like, okay, this is not real, this isn't true or factual. But for them, they kind of take everything in and they're like, well, I saw it on TikTok, so it must be true. And so I think having a safe, non-judgmental space where they can open up and ask questions about their health and receive factual answers is so important and kind of sets us apart from some other groups. And I would say the same thing for women too. Just because you're an adult, it doesn't mean that you have all of the answers. And so having a space where you can come in and feel comfortable opening up, knowing that you're not going to be judged because you don't know something. There are a lot of things that I learned even after I graduated from high school, just moving away from home. And I was like, wow, I never had these conversations growing up. And so I think it's really nice that we're able to provide that space. And then empowering with knowledge and skills needed to make informed decisions around health and things that can impact their health. In addition to traditional topics that you would associate with health, like physical activity or nutrition, we also cover topics that help to build resilient skills, things like positive thinking, how to communicate, how to set goals for yourself, and make good decisions. I remember growing up, I always heard over the morning announcements, make it a great day or not, the choice is yours. Make good decisions, the choice is yours. But nobody ever taught me how to actually make a good decision or, what goes into that. And so I think, empowering with knowledge, but also skills to feel confident in the decisions that you're making that are going to impact your health is a really important part of taking care of yourself and taking care of your health.
Absolutely. And I feel like health advocacy in general, even as an adult woman myself that has grown up in the health professional field, advocacy still does not come easy, even for me. Like, I feel like it's something where the clients and families that we support say that they often feel the most uncomfortable with. How does the Women's Fund build that advocacy in women and in girls that they're supporting?
I first want to say that it can be intimidating to speak up for yourself in any space, but I think especially the healthcare space, because there can sometimes feel like a big gap. Like my doctor, my providers, they're so educated, they know what's best for me. So maybe I feel a little bit hesitant to speak up for myself and what I want. Overall, we do encourage participants to use their voice and to remind them that their voice does matter. We have a right to have a say in our healthcare journey. And that includes, talking about what we want and what we don't want for treatment. Ultimately, I like to remind my participants, and I actually did this yesterday. We did a presentation over like naturally balancing hormones. And I told them, your healthcare providers are a part of your team and you're all working towards the same goal, which is optimal health for you. So having honest conversations with your providers about the things that you want versus what you don't want, or voicing any concerns that you have or asking questions, those are things that are important and that you have a right to do. And I think that a lot of the topics we teach also help with encouraging advocacy. So things like communication skills, how can you talk about your feelings in a way that's hopefully going to promote conversation as opposed to blame someone or close the door, maybe making them a little defensive or shut off. So how we can communicate, how we can set boundaries. We also talk about things like self-esteem. And I think that plays a huge part in it as well. Having confidence in yourself, conflict resolution, goal setting, decision making, all of these things tie into how confident you are in yourself to advocate for yourself. But then also, I do think that having people in your corner to help advocate for you is also very powerful. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like sometimes we just need a little bit of help or a little push of encouragement. So I think also, we can work on ourselves, work on our communication and our self-esteem to better advocate for ourselves, but also having someone in our corner that will help us do that as well sometimes can be really helpful.
For our listeners that maybe won't have as much of an opportunity to be a part of your program, do you want to share some communication patterns that you encourage people to utilize when they're talking with people in advocacy? Are there certain things that they could try? For example, if somebody was wanting to go talk to, say, a physician about a plan of care for their oncology treatment and they're naturally kind of guarded about it, do you have tools that you teach people you work with to push out of that? Like, do you have like tricks of like taking breath breaks or, writing all your questions down before? Like, are there things for communication that you find is helpful for your clients?
Yeah, so I would say definitely writing things down, especially if this is something that you're nervous to do, because once you get in that space, it might become overwhelming. You might forget the questions that you had. So writing down your questions or your speaking points, I think is extremely helpful. Allowing yourself the opportunity to take some deep breaths, calm yourself down so that you can clearly and effectively communicate. I think we also talk about it's not what you say, it's also how you say it. So consider your tone and the way that you're saying things and how that might come across to someone else is really important. And then I would say using I statements. I statements place the emphasis on you and what you're feeling and when you feel that way. And it's a way for you to communicate your feelings, but also your goals and the things that you need. And I feel like that can be really helpful because people tend to be more receptive to those I statements as opposed to you statements. So, you're not making me feel comfortable. You don't make me feel like my voice is heard. Instead, saying something like, I feel unheard when my concerns are brushed aside. So it has a completely different vibe and it puts the focus more on you and your feelings at that time instead of placing blame on another person. I think too, if you are kind of worried about how something may come across or how you're communicating something, you could always practice with another person. I know that when I need to have conversations that I'm maybe a little anxious about, I find myself practicing. Sometimes I practice with somebody else, like my sister, because she'll give me honest feedback. And sometimes it's just me alone in my car, like talking to myself, like, okay, so this is what I want to say. Let me practice it so that when I'm in the moment, like I feel more confident because I've kind of already rehearsed what I want to say.
I think that's so smart. And I know it sounds probably daunting for people that are navigating illness or injury to be like, let me take an extra minute and also write everything down and do one more thing when I'm feeling terrible. But in the long run, I think you're right, and that it best prepares you to be able to go in knowing these are the points I don't want to get overwhelmed or nervous and forget to ask, and then go home and obsess about it or think about it for all hours of the night. Like, oh, I should have said this. And I love that now there are portals. I feel like that has really changed our ability to increase communication directly with the medical team because you're not sitting on hold for, 15, 20 minutes trying to get through to somebody. So I think that that's great feedback too, is that you can use these questions, but if still you miss something, like there is the portal, right? Like send those messages.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a great point. Sometimes having the screen and not being face to face with someone makes it a little bit easier to have certain conversations. And then you have an opportunity to really think through, like if you type something out and you're like, ooh, no, I don't like that. You can just backspace and like restart. So I think that is also helpful. And then for taking the notes, I am a sticky note girl myself. So I write everything down on sticky notes, but you could also do little like voice memo notes as well. So if someone is ill, they're not feeling well, and the last thing they want to do is go find pen and paper to like write stuff down, voice notes can also be like helpful as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you encourage people to record doctor's appointments like on their phone? Is that something that I'm just curious? I don't know. Like, is that something that is allowed per se? Like, I guess you just have to let the person know, like, I'm going to record this so that I don't forget.
Yeah, I think that each provider or clinic or system probably has their own policies in place. So if that is something that you would like to do, just make sure that you are requesting that so that you're not overstepping any boundaries. And if it's not an option, if you're able to take someone with you who can help you with note taking, because oftentimes you might find like, well, these are the things that I captured. And someone's like, well, these are the things that I captured. And there's probably overlap, but there might be little things that were missed. You could also request or go into your portal for the follow-up notes from your visit. But yeah, I think asking, I would feel more comfortable if I was able to record this so that I could come back and listen to it later. Is that an option?
Yeah, these are great tools. I'm sure it's so helpful for our listeners too. Your programming with the Women's Fund, I love how it has a foundation of creating support that is resilient, impactful, empowering, your core values of your programming. How do you see these play out in your programming?
I would say through our participants and the growth that they experience throughout our time together. A lot of the times the programming that we're doing is not just a one and done. So even if it's not our curriculum-based program, but an as-needed program, we're going back on a regular basis. So we are seeing the same group or similar groups of people for extended periods of time. And Hearing them refer to previous sessions or share stories of themselves implementing the things that we've discussed is so motivating. Like hearing them say, you know what, after we talked about communication and you told me how to set a boundary, I went and did that. And oh my gosh, I feel like I've lifted a weight off of my shoulders. And so I think that is really impactful. The Women's Fund itself is a really resilient organization with resilient staff as well. Over the last few years, especially, as many other organizations, we've experienced many challenges and it's made us better and stronger. And so we're able to bring that resilience into our programs and share that with participants, and then providing women and girls with knowledge, skills, and language to make choices they feel confident in is empowering. So talking to them about things like how much activity they're supposed to get, or how to read a food label, how to identify their own stressors and how to manage their stress, what qualities to look for in healthy relationships, how to have difficult conversations, how and when to compromise. All of these things are extremely important in our health journey. And I don't think that we always have opportunities to have these kinds of conversations or receive this education in other spaces. Plus, you're doing it with other women and other girls. And so you're able to kind of like validate your feelings and experiences. Because a lot of times, like, someone might be hesitant to share something, and then the whole group's like, oh no, I feel that way too. Or, oh yeah, I completely understand where you're coming from. And so you build this strong sense of community within the group, which is really, really inspiring.
That is. And I love that then it's their own built-in network that you've created through this space. And that's incredible. What part of programming would you say is your most favorite?
This is the easiest question for me. Definitely the participants. I feel like I learn so much from each group that I work with because every group is a little different. They all come with their own previous experiences and perspectives. And so I feel like I learn so much from the groups that I work with. And I'm inspired every day by their resilience and their ability to continue to show up for themselves despite the challenges that they endure. And then on top of that, when you go into a session and you see familiar faces and they're excited to see you and they're excited to tell you about the things that they've done that you taught them that have helped them in some way, it's just really rewarding. I think sometimes because we don't get to see the girls as often as like a teacher would, we go in for a 45-minute hour session and then we leave. And then, maybe we come back 2 weeks later or a month later. And so we don't always get to see like the day-to-day growth. But then when you do come back and they're excited to share with you, like, I've been implementing this, or you talked to me about conflict resolution. And so I was able to navigate a conflict with one of my friends. And now our relationship is better than it was before. Those things are really exciting. So it's always the participants that is my favorite part of my job.
How long do people stay in the program for?
It varies. So we have curriculum-based programs. We have a 10-week and a 6-week, both for women and girls. And then we also have as-needed programs, both for women and girls. So it depends on what our contact is selecting. And then we are able to go back. So a lot of times we'll do like a 10-week curriculum on a campus with girls. And then once that curriculum finishes, we start the as-needed program. Most of the time we are doing something like that, where we're continuing programming for the full year. And with schools, we see girls for the entire school year. With women, it's a little different. A lot of our work is done with other nonprofits, and it just depends on the nonprofit itself and whether or not they're in specific programs for like recovery. However long they are there at that organization, we'll see them throughout that journey.
Oh, that's awesome. How would families partner with the Women's Fund, or maybe someone who is wanting to get this level of support? How do they go about connecting?
First, you can contact us. Our office at 713-623-6543 is our office phone number. And you can just let us know, hey, I've heard a little bit about your organization. I'm interested in learning more or finding opportunities to partner. You can also visit our website where you can learn more about the different programs that we have. We have some event pages. So we do offer like special events, but we also have a free events page. So you can kind of see what opportunities we have available to the community. You could also connect with us on social media. That's a great way to kind of see the things that we have going on. And you can always reach out to us there as well. Most of our social media handles are the Women's Fund or the Women's Fund Houston. And then I did mention, community opportunities. We have some different things that we do in partnership with the Health Museum and University of Houston downtown, where we open up presentations around various health topics to the public. So you can always visit our website to see our free events and come out and see us in action.
That's awesome. For our listeners, maybe from all over the country, are there national resources available through your programming, or is it all specific to the greater Houston area?
Right now, we are specific to greater Houston area. However, our publications are available. So if you go to our website, we do have a publication order form that you can order publications through. And if you are maybe in another state, but you're still interested, there are PDF versions available for you to download. Yeah, so we have 4 different publications. One is specifically for adolescent girls, things that they might have questions about as they go through those difficult teen years. We have a publication for women that talks a lot about things we need to know as we age. So there's information on chronic illnesses, reproductive health, mental health. And then our last 2 publications I really like to say are more for the family because anybody can use them. We have a nutrition and active lifestyle publication and a tracker that you use like a journal to keep up with things like doctor's appointments, medications, vaccines, and things like that. And then I did want to also mention, we do have several presentations on our YouTube channel. So if you are in an area that we do not provide service for, but you're interested in some of our programming, I would strongly encourage you to visit our YouTube channel. You can find a lot of previous presentations that the Women's Fund staff has done, but also some of the stuff that we've done in collaboration with other organizations.
Oh, awesome. And we'll link that on our podcast so they can find it. That's great. And to your website as well. How do you see the tools that are found through the Women's Fund supporting someone that may be facing maybe chronic illness or injury?
When we talk about positive thinking, we understand that it's not always realistic to have positive thoughts all the time. And so we teach our participants how to challenge negative thoughts into something that's more positive or more neutral so that they can hopefully better understand their thinking patterns and thought processes to help them adapt a more positive mindset. And I think when you're going through tough times, that sometimes can be hard to do. It can be hard to find the silver lining. And so we teach how to challenge negative thoughts to work towards more positive mindset. Communication has come up several times in this conversation. So how to communicate your needs and your feelings and how to set boundaries with people in both professional and personal spaces. Stress management, talking about various techniques and things that we can do to help with managing stress, and knowing that challenging situations and struggle help to build resilience. And remembering that when we talk about resilience, we always say resilience does not mean that a person is going to not experience adversity. In fact, those barriers, those roadblocks, those challenges are the things that help you to become a more resilient person. Those tools and having conversations around those different topics could be extremely helpful for someone who's going through a serious illness or injury. And then also, I think the Women's Fund provides a community of support. Maybe not everyone in the group can relate exactly to what you're going through, but it provides you with another group of support if you need it. The groups that we work with are so lovely and they're always such nice, supportive people. And even when they can't really resonate with what's going on with you, they can still have empathy and they still provide encouragement. And a lot of times, that's something that maybe we need. It's helpful, especially to have from a different group of people. I think sometimes when we receive support from loved ones, that's great. But maybe we're like, well, they have to do this because I'm their family. But receiving that kind of support and encouragement from a new group of people can be really helpful.
And empowering, you're right. That in itself will grow bravery and resiliency. Is there anything else that I failed to mention or anything that you want to share with our listening population?
I would just like to say we are a small organization, but we do our best to be as flexible and accommodating as possible. So if someone wants to connect with us, we want to connect with them. I think there are many opportunities for people to be involved with our organization, whether that's becoming a participant and sitting in on our classes and sessions or attending events that we offer. We do try to have some kind of educational component in every event that we have. And I did specifically want to highlight that on December 5th, we have a membership luncheon. There is a fee associated with the luncheon. However, the topic is going to be navigating grief and finding joy after loss. So the holidays can be especially challenging when facing grief, whether from death of a loved one or other life challenges and changes, such as shifts in health, relationships, or other significant losses. This session will share practical ways to cope with loss, honor traditions while creating new ones, and take steps toward resilience and rediscovering joy. So I think the session itself is going to be very powerful. And if anyone is interested in tuning in, but they aren't able to come to the luncheon, we do live stream our membership luncheon presentations on Facebook. I would say reach out, try to find a way to connect with us, to sit in on some of our programming, and hopefully you'll find it impactful and empowering.
Thank you for tuning into our podcast today. Please subscribe and continue to check back as our content is ever evolving. For questions or specific content-related requests, please send an email to podcast@wondersandworries.org.